Awesome. Hello, everyone. Let me just a quick intro. So I'm Peter. I'm a product lead for Fin Voice at Intercom. And normally I live in London, so visiting San Francisco for a week. Super excited to be here and have a chat with Deeni.
And jet lagged.
I'm a little bit jet lagged, so forgive me if I'm a bit slow at times. But yeah, Fin Voice is just to give you a little overview about this product. It's a voice AI agent, phone support. So it's designed to pick up the phone, clarify the customer question, get them the right answer, and escalate to a human agent if needed. And just to give you a bit more context on the space around voice AI and customer service, why are we investing in voice as Intercom? For some customers, it's simply the preferred way to contact customer service. It's maybe not the dominant way, but if the issue is more urgent or sensitive, like phone support is the way to go. And if you look at the market, probably 80% of support teams, they still use phone as a channel. And more than 1/3 of all conversations happen over the phone. So it's still a huge opportunity, and phone support is not going away. So if it comes to automation of AI, customer support, it's something that will be a huge opportunity. And in terms of benefits for the customers, there is the availability, so 24/7 support with voice AI agents. There is immediate access, so no need to queue. And also no need to go for IVR menus, press 1, press 2, press 3. And for the businesses, it's just cheaper. If you think about phone support and costs for human agents, probably between $10 and $20 in the US. It's going to be way cheaper with voice AI. But yeah, it's not all about the automation. Today, we're going to talk a bit more about the experience itself, how voice is a bit different. We're essentially trying to redesign how the phone conversations feel like, and there's a lot of challenges that I'm excited about talking about today. But yeah, so just an overview. But before we get that, yeah, Deeni, do you want to do an intro as well and tell us a bit more about Gamma?
Hi, everyone. I'm Deeni. I lead AI product at Gamma. And for those of you who don't know what Gamma is, we do AI-powered professional content generation. So decks, docs, sites, socials, all powered by AI. And it really is about bringing your ideas to life and taking the tedium out of doing that. You can come to Gamma with 20 pages of notes, or maybe just an idea that's one line, and you should be able to plug it in, decide to do more research into that topic using AI, structure an outline using AI, edit that outline, decide on the visuals of it, decide on the design of it. All of that sort of AI doing for you while you're sort of informing it what good looks like to you and what you want in the output. And then getting to a draft and also editing further with AI. So end-to-end AI-based content generation. Really, again, we keep coming back to this idea is people have so many ideas. How do we help them bring it to life and take the tedium out of it? That's really the crux of what we try to do at Gamma. So excited to talk more about it. There's so much we'll get into today. But listen, it's Tuesday evening. You're jet lagged. I'm not an evening person, so we're going to cut the small talk, right? And we're going to get straight to the heart of it. Give the people juicy stuff, Peter. We've talked to them a lot about what's great about our products. Let's talk about what's hard. What's been hard in your world? What have you... technically, from a user experience perspective, what are the things that you guys are tackling right now that feel hard?
It's a good question to start on. So with voice AI in general, when we started working on this, Intercom started with a chat AI agent. So the main problems to solve there were around getting the right answer for the customer. And this still remains a problem for voice, but it's so much more around how you deliver the answer by using voice as a kind of method of communication. It's typically when the 4 problems I think about when this are, one, latency. There's a big constraint for those systems. And a system like a chat is probably okay to wait 5-8 seconds for a response. People are okay to wait, but voice doesn't really work. The human latency is about 300 milliseconds, maybe a bit higher on the jet lag. And so if you need to wait for a reply for 3, 4, 5 seconds, it feels quite unnatural. And it's
Also, if
something.
the reply is really long, I'll just jump in and cut them right off.
Yes. So interruptions is a big deal for voice AI. Like, in text, you don't need to deal with it, but with voice, you need to handle this. Like if someone interrupts your answer, you need to readjust to the new question. And it's like a huge aspect on the conversational design. So in chat, you can provide a very long answer. So let's say someone comes in with a question, payment issue. On chat, it's probably okay to give them like, oh, here's the likely topic payment issue that we're experiencing, and you have a lot of space to give it in a chat experience. But on voice, like no one's gonna wait for like 2 minutes listening to like potential answer to a question that you didn't actually ask. So that we're doing a lot of work to clarify what the question is first, to increase the chance of actually getting the right answer. And like the throughput of voice is just slower than with chat. So we need to get to the right problem first before we actually give the answer. So latency, conversational design, interruptions, and lastly, the voice experience. So stuff like accents, intonations, pacing, disfluencies, which is a new word I had to learn around adding stuff like the fillers, like between the answer, just to make it sound more natural. And all of this is part of the design to make the experience feel more human and to encourage users to actually engage with a voice AI agent, because they might be less likely to do so if it's more robotic. So obviously there's way more here, but I think these are like some of the like key things I always think about. But I would love to hear a bit more. Well, these are like some of my problems, but what are the hardest problems at Gamma these days?
Oh man, I think if I think about sort of, there are lots of problems in the AI space, building with AI in general. But I think the top ones that come to mind from a user experience standpoint actually are actually ones that maybe many of you are familiar with, and you as well, Peter, is like alignment. So people come to Gamma with some sort of vision in mind for what good looks like or what they want to achieve. And we have such a broad array of users. People come to Gamma thinking, oh, I want to tell this really visual story that's really sort of image-based. Or they come to Gamma thinking, oh, I really want to create this information-rich, data-rich deck. Or they come to Gamma thinking, I want to create socials that are going to boost my engagement. And those are like very different goals. And we sort of think of Gamma as a design partner. And how would a design partner approach this? They would sit down with you, they would ask you a bunch of questions, they would really try to understand your use case, and then they would sort of give you a draft. The problem is, people go to a design partner with that patience. They don't come to AI tools with that patience, to your point, right? So one of the things that we've been really thinking about is how do we align what the user intent is with what the AI output is going to be without asking too many questions, or with asking the right number of questions. So again, getting that UI right has been, I think we're already we've like solved a few of the problems there, and we're constantly thinking about sort of, again, better alignment, better user experience, and so that's something that we're thinking about deeply. From a technical standpoint, something that we think about a lot is how do we get AI models to exhibit taste? So a lot of models, foundation models, are getting good at instruction following and getting good at deterministic or more deterministic outputs like code generation. But there's something about trying to combine text and images and layouts and designs, all married with a user intent, and outputting that in a way that feels tasteful and right. And codifying that into AI has been quite interesting of a challenge for us. So that's another one that we're dealing with constantly, especially as not just users, not just as the AI changes, but also user discernment is changing. Back in the day, people used to be so happy just to get a quick answer in ChatGPT, but look how far we've come. People are demanding a lot more, so keeping up with those expectations and demands and actually trying to stay ahead of it is also something that we're thinking about doing. And the final one that I've been thinking about a lot recently is speed versus quality. I feel like it's something that we're always thinking about, to be honest. But speed and quality are both a UX sort of related problem and a technical problem, because they're technical limitations to how fast and how good you can get. And so we're trying to sort of think about, we're running different experiments essentially on the speed-quality trade-off in different types of experiences. So a user who's like generating a 75-card deck might actually be willing to wait a lot longer for the right output than somebody who's editing that 75-card deck, but for some reason the editing experience to them feels like it should be faster, although it's a 75-card operation as well. So it's just really interesting sort of user experiments that we're trying to run and see sort of what the right Pareto sphere is there.
Yeah, so do you give users any flexibility to make those trade-offs between speed and quality?
Yeah, it's such a good question. We try to. I think there are parts of our experience where users can sort of decide how heavily they want to input versus how much work they want the AI to do. So an example of that is, again, at the very beginning, you can sort of say, you know what, I've actually spent a lot of time perfecting this storyline, and I've done this in a different surface or like through my notes, and I actually have all this context that I want to provide the AI. Or you can, again, just say, I don't know, I just know I need to start with like preparing for the QBR that's coming up and just start with one line. So there's sort of that level of like speed and context that we allow users to choose from. Another one is users can actually choose between image models in our interface. And again, for higher quality, like GPT Image High, it takes a bit longer, but the text quality that you get and the quality of image that you get is really high. And I think a lot of users who use that model have come to expect that they will wait longer, but they'll get a better output. So we let them choose, and we try to tell them, like, hey, these are the trade-offs you're making by choosing these models. So yeah.
Got it. So it sounds like it's a little bit about trying to identify what they actually need in the experience and then giving it some flexibility to choose between the options.
Totally. And how about, like, I know speed and quality is probably something you guys think about a lot, especially given the voice modality. What are some of the trade-offs you've tried to make off there, or what are the experiments that you're running? Yeah,
so as I mentioned, like it's latency is a big extra constraint for those systems that we have with voice. So like many players in this space, they use different models specifically for voice because you have this like latency budget of few seconds that it's kind of deemed as more acceptable. But yeah, the main trade-offs are between latency itself, the answer quality, and the voice experience. And there's probably some flexing you can do there to get a better voice experience quality. You can sacrifice latency, or to get to slightly higher answer quality and getting a higher chance of getting the right answer, you can also sacrifice latency. So I would say, like, initially it was more about you talked a little bit about taste. So we see there's been a lot of just internal testing by our team and getting to what feels right and getting a lot of feedback from direct feedback from our customers. And we probably got to this point where we felt like, okay, if it's under 5 seconds, it still kind of works, but it's like a maximum. Like today, we're probably about 2 seconds for like a typical like knowledge-based responses. So we got to this point that we had this like maximum, and within it, we've been trying to optimize. But then we also put a lot of effort to actually bring it down to 2 seconds. Now we have a bit more space to potentially improve the voice experience and focus more on answer quality. But yeah, to answer your question on the A/B tests, like right now we're running one test around voice experience versus latency. So it's specifically using a more higher quality AI voice model, which takes a bit more longer to generate answers. So let's say you can think about it. Poorer voice quality and an answer in 2 seconds, or a higher voice quality and answer in about like 3.5 seconds. So essentially we're trying to figure out, is it gonna impact the metrical instant escalation rate? So this is the situation when someone calls and just says, human.
Agent,
representative, which does happen obviously a lot. So the hypothesis behind it is, like, if the voice experience is better, it might incentivize some people to stay on the call with an agent. And we had this notion on the team for a while, is like how natural the agent sounds kind of has this notion for the user how smart the agent is, just based on the voice experience. So we don't have the results yet of this specific change, but I know we're going to be iterating more on this. How do we get to a higher, more natural sounding experience, and sacrificing latency we have to.
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned this concept of like how smart the agent is, or like how the user's perception of like whether the agent's giving a right answer or how tasteful it is. Taste is something that we also think about a lot at Gamma. And yeah, there's several sort of things that you mentioned that really resonated with me. I think, again, like taste in the answer, like how quickly you're giving me the answer, how you're sort of articulating the answer, did I understand the answer? There's like so many aspects to like voice-related taste there, intonation as well, I'm sure. For us, you know, one of the things that makes, I think, taste really interesting at Gamma, or taste such an interesting topic, is we're trying to combine multiple levels of taste. There's content, right? Like, am I generating the right kind of content? Is it content that the users trust? Is it married appropriately with the right visuals and the right designs for the audience that's intended? And when we think about how to set up taste within our product, there's sort of several things that we think about. One is, how do we set up the AI for success? And part of that is both giving AI freedom, but within constraints. That's been something that's sort of been an interesting thing that we've navigated. So how do we increase visual variety in Gamma, but also have the AI not go crazy and just like suggest lots of different weird designs? So we've been sort of creating visual blocks and giving the AI like essentially a bigger and bigger playground. But the blocks themselves are sort of designed in a way where, like, if the AI makes the right choice and places the right block in the right place, we constrain those designs in ways that then sort of effectively sort of, you know, it lends itself well to like a card content and text and wrapping and all of that. We sort of take care of ourselves. I also think a lot about sort of taste. Sorry, Peter, were you going to say something? No, okay. I also think about like measuring taste as being really hard, and I'd love to hear how, again, you guys do that. That's something, again, we're spending so much time at Gamma doing. There's a kind of sort of two parts to this. One is qualitative. So there's sort of, when it comes to taste, there's sort of no getting around it. You need to sort of check it yourself and be a taste maker yourself. So I call myself the glorified human evaluator at Gamma. A huge part of my job is to like just test out all these new models that come out, all the new prompt changes we're making myself. And obviously it's a team effort, but I take a great amount of accountability for it. And just feel like, does this feel right? Is it getting better? Is it getting worse? And so dog fooding, our own product, is a huge part of Gamma's culture. Every Friday, we do this thing called Gamma-Rama, where somebody signs up to use Gamma for a topic of their interest. They use the AI flow, or maybe some manual flows as well, and then they present it, and then they talk about what they liked and disliked about our product. And like, we do this as a company every Friday, and obviously every day as we're using Gamma as well. So dog fooding is a huge part of it, and I think when it comes to taste, there's no sort of way around it. Another thing that we do is, again, heavy A/B testing. So Gamma is founded by a lot of ex-Optimizely folks, so A/B testing is in our blood. And so oftentimes we'll get early access to models, we'll like plug them in and just start A/B testing, and often we'll end up with hundreds of thousands of data points around how two variations are doing. Sometimes we share this feedback with our model providers and model partners, and my favorite quote to mention here is that they once said, many of our customers give us vibes, but you guys are giving us numbers to 2 decimal places. So I take great pride in that. I think measuring sort of taste is pretty interesting from that perspective.
So speaking about numbers, how do you measure success more on the quant side? So when we run those A/B tests, like, what are some of the main metrics that you're looking at?
Yeah, totally. We look at everything from, so when a user generates a Gamma, they can thumbs up or thumbs down it. If they thumbs down, they can tell us why. So we look at all of those sort of just quality, like user satisfaction related metrics. But we also look at things like, did they edit the Gamma? Did they share it? Did they export it? Oftentimes, those softer metrics also indicate the level of satisfaction. Editing is one of my really favorite tricky ones, because if your Gamma is so bad that you don't even want to edit it, you're not going to edit it at all, right? You're just going to be like, well, I don't even know where to begin with this. Thankfully, that's not a common situation. We have mostly a lot of edits. And then we find that users who actually engage more with the Gamma and edit more, it's like a good sign. It means that they feel like, wow, this draft is really good. And if I tweak it a little bit here and there, I'm going to get like sort of my perfect output. So we look at a percentage of edits quite a bit.
Yeah, that makes sense. So there's a lot of, because you have a lot of user activity on the deck and obviously the actual feedback as well. And I assume that's something that you share with the model providers as part of your evaluations.
Yeah, sometimes when sort of there's, yeah, totally. We take every opportunity we can to try and improve the ecosystem as a whole, so yeah.
Yeah, I think like thinking about Fin Voice on the metrics, it's probably quite simple, maybe a bit simpler for us because we have this one primary metric, which is resolution rate. So we treat call as resolved for the caller if Fin gives at least one answer and then the user disconnects at some point throughout the call. And we have like a confirmed resolution when they go till the end of the call and then confirm they don't have any other issues, or assumed resolution, which means that they got through at least one question and they disconnected, which often happens like once you actually get your fingers off, you don't necessarily stay to say goodbye to the AI agent, you just disconnect. But it has made things a bit simpler for like how we optimize things, because this is this primary metric that it's very well aligned with our monetization model and is aligned with the best customer outcomes, and we think that the best outcomes for the callers as well. So all those experiments, like we're just using this as a primary metric, there's a lot of like other secondary metrics as well to get the how good the conversation is, how many like turns there are. But yeah, just having this strong one resolution rate metric has been extremely helpful.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I find the resolution rate metric so interesting, and also like as you mentioned, it aligns with your business model and everything. Like there's this component of trust that's related to resolution, and like who decides what a resolution is, and all of that, and then how is the end user experiencing the resolution, and how's the buyer of the company experiencing the resolution. So like, tell me more about trust and how you sort of think about building a product where you have different users in your environment, and how you build trust with each of them.
Yeah, so trust is definitely a super important topic for those like AI agent experiences. And when we think about our customers, I'm gonna put my product hat on. There are two audiences that we have. One would be the end users, so actual callers, and obviously we're designing all of the experiences specifically for those callers. To actually get them the right answers and like resolve their questions. And then we have the people that we sell our product to, so actual buyers, and it will be like a customer service manager or head of customer service who is configuring the agent experience. So the task for us is to build trust with both of those groups, right? I think with the callers, it's although those part of the experience that I mentioned around getting the right balance, around the conversation flow, around the latency, around the voice experience, but primarily getting actually the right answer. It's about the trust that they can get with an agent to the right answer, and if the agent is not able to answer the question, it's going to escalate them. There's nothing more frustrating than staying with an AI agent and is not going to get it, but it still keeps you on the phone and doesn't actually escalate when it doesn't have the right information. So that's quite important, well, obviously for the callers, but also for our customers. They don't necessarily always want to just, okay, some businesses they do, but all of the customers, they don't necessarily want to press just deflections. It's about those better customer experiences. So if they have an issue that needs escalation, it's easy to get escalated as well. But yeah, for the customer service managers, like all this stuff in terms of user experience is important. But then it's just the whole experience of deploying an agent in a safe, kind of in a confident way. So there are like maybe three stages that I think about here. One is testing before they actually deploy. So we have this kind of like a sandbox experience with Fin when we call it like voice playground. And you can ask some test questions, and it's more like for internal teams to first, like they spend like a week there to actually go through some test questions, getting feel how Fin replies. So this has been incredibly important to have like this first experience. Then is the actual deployment. So deploying it, like we usually recommend to deploy in out of office hours, which is like a lower risk, or maybe like 1 or 2% of their traffic. So again, just to get a taste and listen to some of the calls with actual users before they fully deploy it. And then the third space is insights and reporting. So once actually deployed, they need to know, like, is it performing well, and how can I improve it? So we have the whole like insights experience with Fin that allows you to get a breakdown of all the calls by topic and kind of deep dive, narrow down to specific conversations. And then we also provide suggestions how to optimize your content to actually get a higher chance of resolution. So it's just this empowerment of like understanding how it's performing and then also feeling like, oh, I can do something to improve it. So I talked quite a bit about the different aspect of trust, but yeah, I wonder, it's probably quite a bit different in your space, but yeah, curious how you think about it at Gamma.
Yeah, it is. I think it is quite a bit different for us. Well, we're in the business of creating professional content, so the way we think about trust is multifold. The first thing users need to be able to do when they come to Gamma, I think so trust, I can think about like several aspects where we try to build trust with the user. The content you are generating, Gamma, can I trust it? So how do we encourage users to understand where the content is coming from? This is where we've really benefited from including web search in our experience. And so a lot of LLM generation is often based on their training data, which is cut off at different dates. It can't necessarily cite sources. It gets dicey. But users want to be able to say, oh, like this is like the content that it generated, and this is exactly the source that it came from. So the way that we do that is, again, sort of steer them to and ground our information based in web and deep research, so that users can see exactly where the content came from. The other thing that we try to do is be really transparent about how the AI is operating. It's really weird if you ask the AI for something and it does a bunch of things in the background and it comes back and here's your result and you don't even really know what it did. So we've tried to really think about design aspects of, again, the UI to have progressive disclosure, to make the AI thinking really visible and clear about these are the steps that I'm taking. Hey, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go search the web. Here are the things I searched, and here's the result. Hey, next, I'm going to choose like colors for you or visuals for you, but if you want to, you can choose them as well. So again, creating that balance between what the AI does and what the human does, allowing the human to choose and get out of AI mode as well when they need to, but also just like being really transparent, like designing the AI interaction in a way that's really transparent to the user, like what's happening behind the scenes. I think those are like primarily the ways that we've tried to sort of enable trust in our system. And then I think the other part of this is we think about like what's the first time experience using Gamma. And there as well, like one of the ways to build trust is to have like an easy mode. Let's just try this out together, right? So if you go to Gamma, you'll see there's like a mode called Generate. It's really designed to be that easy mode. Like, hey, come here. You're probably a consultant, a marketing person, a salesperson, a teacher, a student. Like there's certain kinds of personas that come to Gamma. We've tried to sort of design that experience in a way where you see familiar prompts, like a salesperson will see lead gen deck or this and that, and then they can just be like, oh, this is familiar territory. I know what this is. And they can click on that, and again, in one step, get something that they can verify and very quickly, and just sort of feel like, oh, I get how this is working. And then that's the step one. Then step two is then graduating you to more complex workflows that you can slowly then build trust on. So that's how we thought about it primarily.
Yeah, I think like the new user experience is like it's super critical. I was just thinking about my first experience with some of the. It wasn't Gamma; it was another product, probably about a year ago. But like I had a problem like as a product manager. I had to prepare a deck maybe I had like 2 hours to prepare a deck, and I just felt like okay, maybe it's gonna be faster with an AI tool, and I tried it, but quickly realized that it's going to be a much longer process to do it with an AI tool than just doing it by myself. And it was both about the quality of the content, which is probably the primary thing, and then maybe secondary about the visuals. But yeah, essentially I bounced from this product right away because, okay, it's going to be just faster to do it by myself. So is this like a problem that you see often when people just don't have the first experience is not very good, and then it's tough to convince them to come back? Or like, do you design anything to counter this and like make sure that they have a great first experience?
Yeah, I think some of the topics that I mentioned around like the easy first experience, what's familiar, getting them started with what feels familiar and topics that they'll feel like are easy to verify for them and sort of do that, the progressive disclosure of different steps and different decisions they can take at each point. And then also this idea of like, here are the sources, like here are the web search sources, so you can go and verify them for yourselves, have all, I think, really helped us with new user experience acquisition. But yeah, I mean, I'm curious if you do anything particular for new users as well. I do also want to note that Alan's giving us looks. I think we're we're in no rush, but yeah, I just wanted to also like do a quick time check, but I'd love to hear more.
Yeah, I think like for the new user experience, it's probably all of the stuff that I mentioned around just being able to test it up front, and then the analysis bit. Yeah. That's probably like the most critical. Totally. But yeah, I think maybe we can switch gears to talk a bit more about the future.
Yes.
So when you think about your space, what do you think like you're most excited to build, let's say, in the next 12 months? Like, is there something that's going to be unlocked by the technology? Is there something you already have in your mind that you kind of like can't wait to start building?
Yeah, I mean, it's Q4. We all know we're building those 2026 decks right now, aren't we? Try out Gamma. Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's such an exciting time. There's a few things that are really top of mind for us at Gamma when it comes to like the big bets, right, for 2026. Part of what we're really thinking through, and I think a lot of what we covered already, is when we designed our first sort of generation experience at Gamma a couple of years ago, AI was about get me to my first draft fast. The narrative, I think, has shifted since then. People are willing to wait longer for better output and do more work up front for better output. So we're thinking more about how do we get from this one-shot generation experience to a more iterative, again, like collaborative experience with AI, where the lines between generation and editing are blurred. So I'm really excited to be sort of thinking about this. There's so much we can do once. It's not like here's a bunch of instructions, give me something, but it's more like, that's interesting, like here's more feedback, like refine it further. The quality of output that you can get users in that sort of iterative experience, I think is much higher. That's one. I'm really excited about memory and personalization. I think in terms of tech capabilities, like now with a lot of models having the memory aspect of it, that's really going to help users not have to have the same conversation again and again, right? Like, remember we talked about this, right? Like, remember my past gammas, past conversations, my preferences, things I liked, and just being able to make that first draft even more powerful and closer to what you like. And then the other thing that I'm really excited about is we are exploring an API. Well, we're not exploring it, we have an API. Please go check it out. It comes from this belief that, first of all, it comes from our users banging down our door for an API. That's the truth. But it also comes from the belief that AI is really just only as powerful as the tools you connect it to. And so we at Gamma want to be really sort of like, again, agent AI tool forward. We've developed an API because we want to connect to all the other tools that you guys are using and be able to just like plug into Gamma and like get all your CRM data and like here's a deck. That's the vision. A lot of users are already using it in Zapier and Make and N8N and even as a visualization layer in their own apps. So if you're a developer, come talk to me later. But yeah, those are some of the big bets that I'm really interested about for 2026 for us, and I want to hear what you're interested about.
Sure, yeah. I think, so Fin Voice, we're kind of in this exciting stage where we're focusing mostly right now on scaling. Like we think we have a really good base product. But in terms of like the new opportunities, maybe like 2 or 3 that I'm excited about. One, we're mostly focusing right now on like more complex troubleshooting flows. So using customer APIs, kind of doing multiple like more complex flow with like maybe 20 troubleshooting steps. Often like the contacts on the phone are a bit more complex. You can have customers who try on chat, who try on email, and then get to phone, as the last resort. So there's going to be a lot of those that we need to handle well, and that's where kind of we're putting all the focus. there is one space around simulations, and we have this experience on chat when you can run more. This is more kind of this experience before you actually deploy, when you can run a lot of test conversations upfront. This is a bit more complex for voice, and like we're doing some of this stuff internally, like as my team is kind of essentially running those, but it's something that we would potentially want to make available to our customers as well, when you can actually run simulation upfront using a voice AI agent.
In the sandbox.
Yeah, so there you kind of like run essentially one voice AI agent talking to another voice AI agent with example questions and evaluating how it's performing. And the one last one that I think is, we can do it today, we just haven't prioritized it, is how to improve the queuing experience. So as I talked about it at the beginning, there's some callers are going to want to escalate right away. They just don't want to speak to an AI agent. But then like, the downside is they might be stuck in a queue for like 10, 15 minutes, which is not great either. And they might not know upfront or like recognize this. So we're thinking like, how can we plug in the agent to the queue as well? So it's like, hey, you're going to probably wait 10 minutes. Do you still want to, maybe I can solve your problem? Because like nothing pains me more than like watching a transcript or like hearing a recording when someone has a very simple question that I know we can solve it like within a minute, but they do choose to go into queue for 15 minutes. So that's, I think, is like a very exciting opportunity, and I actually try to change this mindset for people like, hey, you actually can get the benefit. There will be some issues that it's not going to be the case, but I think there's still big opportunities there.
I think that's super exciting. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, on that note, I think we're ready for Q&A.
Sure. If you want to raise your hand, folks, if you have any questions.
When is there going to be a voice-enabled Gamma?
Oh, amazing. The funny thing is the number of users who've told me that they want to generate a deck in their car on their way to a customer. So the answer is probably soon. Well, okay. First of all, that is a real use case that's come up several times. I think when I think about voice in Gamma, I think about two modes. One is like consuming content via voice. So I want to listen to the 2026 strategy decks as I'm driving into work. And instead of having to like read through the deck, I want to listen to it on my commute. And then I think there is sort of this other use case around, I want to just be able to generate on the go. And generation on the go is one way of looking at it, but also editing feels like something that will lend itself pretty well to voice. So it's on our radar, and I think that it'll be like a really interesting step to take. But I don't know if 2026 will be the year. Maybe it will.
Hey, I can give you some advice.
Yeah, please. That's why we're here. Yeah, cool.
Hi, my next question's to Deeni. I think I have a bunch of questions for you, but I'll just start with a couple. You mentioned that one of the ways in which you can get AI to exhibit taste is deciding a balance between asking the right number of questions before you sort of refine the output and really sort of giving that progressive output. How do you decide what's the right number of follow-up questions? Because it can get quite annoying as a user. If I'm not getting an output, I'm just constantly being bombarded with follow-ups. That's my first question. My second is around trust building and how you cite sources from the web when you give an output. I think as users, we're getting, in general, lazier with going and verifying sources. So are you able to pinpoint the exact snippet from a source which actually contributed to content? And are you also able to distinguish between static content that featured in a generated output versus inferences from that source that actually featured? So a couple of questions there.
Amazing. I'll answer the last question first. So I think the question was around citing sources. Can you cite exactly what excerpt that you got from the source? And then are you able to distinguish between the excerpt versus an inference that was made from the excerpt? The answer is yes. I actually think if you go to, I haven't tried this out myself because part of our web search experience is also in this agentic flow. If you go into Gamma and you sort of type into our agent that, hey, like here's a new feature that came out from OpenAI, go find it, like create a card about it. I think it could do that, and I think it could also like cite the exact excerpts that it got from. It got from whichever source it cited, and I think it could probably also give you the inference. So to be very clear, have we really designed for that use case in mind, where people are trying to differentiate between an excerpt and an inference? No. But my guess is that it would be able, like, models are so smart that I think it would be able to do it. And then to your first question around how many questions do you ask, what we've been trying to do there is have really great product sense. Because we have been just living in this content generation world for a long time, there are certain building blocks that we know that the user needs to tell us ahead of time. So we try to minimize those numbers of questions. For example, if you don't even tell me what you're trying to generate, like the topic or the form factor, or maybe even your goal with it, I think it's really hard to even get to the next step. So there are some minimum number of questions that we'll try to ask you, and we will try to minimize them. And then we try to take you through this journey of like, okay, well now here's another set of decisions that you can make, or listen, we can make it for you. So one thing that we try to do is set the right defaults. So if you're like, oh, this is too much stuff, just like generate, you actually don't need to go through all of the questions. We will then, based on your prompt, your goals, your content that you've added, try to infer the right colors and tone and audience and actually make those decisions for you. So if you want more granularity and control, you can specify, you can answer more questions, or we'll do the work for you as well. That's how we think about it.
Hi there. Great talk. I have a question for you, Peter, about sources. So user-generated content versus official company knowledge base. When you are training an agent, like how do you leverage user-generated content, which can sometimes be really specific and really helpful for rare cases? Or do you only use like official, we're a company, we do this, 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 and this is our knowledge base and way we resolve an issue? Thanks.
Yeah. The primary way to get the knowledge base is the official stuff. So you essentially upload your, like, however you store your help articles, and that's the kind of the main source. We don't use the past conversations. We have a product called Copilot, which is used by human agents. And for this product, we use conversations, but we thought it's going to be a bit too much risk potentially of exposing personal customer data if we were used in our like customer-facing agent. So it is the company content, but we do have a feature called guidance, which essentially allows you to affect the prompts. So if you want to change some sort of agent behavior, for example, you can specify when the agent should escalate, or when it gets a specific type of question, you need to differentiate between two product types. You can provide these extra modifications. Like we have the core logic in our team spends a lot of time optimizing those prompts, but there's this bit of flexibility to provide like more specific like changes in behavior specific to given companies.
Thanks, great talk. I had more of a general question, kind of a future-facing question. So today, like, we all know those meetings where you sit down, somebody pulls up a deck, and it's oh no from the get-go. It's like, oh, this deck is going to be horrible. It looks bad. You know it's going to be a long meeting. Or someone calls in to customer support. The whole music is janky. The menu is horrible, right? Before you even start the process, you already know that communication is completely broken down. So I think tools like Fin and Gamma go a huge, mind-boggling way, like, forward to avoid those issues. But I'm curious, long term, do we then risk, I don't know how to word this, but just moving kind of that bar up a little bit? Now it's like someone pulls up an amazing presentation, but it's, oh no, it's a Gamma presentation, or oh no, they're just using Fin. And I'm curious if you're thinking of that problem where the expectation is so much higher. We've solved all those other issues, but now the expectation is still there, and there's still maybe, what's the differentiation factor from company A to B if they all have access to these tools, for example?
I think it's an interesting question. Like, we're so far from that reality, but that reality, it's possible that we get there, right? Right now, what our users are telling us is that, again, I was talking to somebody today, and they were saying they're in real estate, and they use Gamma to put together really attractive sort of real estate listings, and they were saying that just like, this is a real estate listing. Not to say like, this isn't like you're not creating content. You have images, you have content, you're trying to present it in a more visual way. And they're saying that Gamma is really helping them like move the needle in real estate sales and like the traction that they're getting. So I think like what I spend a lot of time thinking about is how do we get users to be able to both the creators and the consumers of content to get to the crux of the matter faster. And that's really the problem that we're trying to solve today. If we can get to that faster, then we will have done our jobs. And then I think then the question becomes, okay, well, everybody's getting to the crux of the matter really fast. Now, how do we differentiate? I'll be honest with you, I haven't thought about that problem yet because we're so far off of it. Maybe that's when the creativity of it will come into play and people will be even more sort of adventurous with how they talk about their messages. Animations in professional presentations, I did not think was going to be a thing, but animations are very popular in Gamma, and people use it for professional presentations, and used tastefully, they can actually sort of really like really zhuzh up your presentation. So again, we'll start to see some creative explorations there, I think, once we've met the bar for communication first.
I think for phone support, like user mindset is still a big issue. So like whenever you listen to the demos, like they might sound great, but the reality is like there's still going to be a lot of customers who will not choose to engage with an agent. So there's going to be a process to, well, the product needs to get better, and there's stuff like sounding more natural and being a bit faster, but then it's just about the confidence that actually I can get to the resolution faster with an AI agent than I could do with a human agent. Like having the confidence that, okay, it's actually going to be able to solve my problem. Because right now, like that's like the technology needs to get better, but also there's this perception problem that's going to take a while. But assuming we get there, I think that differentiation is like different players are going to approach it differently. Like for Fin and Intercom, like there's like few elements. Like one of them is that we have this. Well, we have the omni-channel agent across all channels, and we have the help desk solution. So it's kind of like everything that you need for support. It's partially today is a bit of a differentiator. I think it's going to be harder to compete on having like the full suite. But then it's going to be just the quality itself, and obviously we're all competing with our players around this.
Thanks for the great talk. A question for you, Peter. I heard you mention sounding natural a couple of times. And today I had a phone call from a recruiter, and midway into the call, I had to ask, are you an actual person or are you an AI? And she told me, no, I'm a human being, but I don't know if I should believe it, because it really... either she had a great voice or it was an AI. And so I'm wondering if there is an argument to be made that for a synthetic sounding AI, that it should be obvious whether there was a disclosure or not, that this is an AI and it speaks not in a maybe an artificial way, but in a way that's clearly not a human. And whether you've thought about that and experimented with that.
Yeah, so I live in the UK, in Europe. So there's already regulation for this, and you actually have to disclose. Well, I think in the US you have to do it for outbound calls. So if you're ever getting like marketing calls, at least in California, you have to disclose. I think that it's an AI agent, and like the law is a bit about like it has to be obvious that it's an AI agent. So if it sounds very robotic, they don't have to do it. But if it sounds natural, they're supposed to say, "Hey, I'm a virtual agent." So I think that's going to be the norm. That's what we don't enforce it, but that's what we encourage our customers to do disclose it. And yeah, I definitely there are some experiences when I wasn't sure either. So I think it's going to be important to make this obvious. in some way.
We can take one or two more questions. That sounds good.
Hi, my name is Tara. Thanks for the conversation. Something that stood out was what you were talking about is the appetite for people to try new products right now is extremely high. So that first use and experience is very critical. And just with the gears turning around voice, and I'm curious, more I guess for you, Deeni, or maybe for Peter, when you're actually onboarding your customers, have you experimented with voice first to kind of have the free-form user experience kind of dictate what that flow looks like? Because a lot of what I've seen is a pretty standard onboarding cadence that feels outdated compared to like the dynamic nature of the products. Not specifically to either of these companies, just in general with a lot of the tools. So kind of curious if there's any experimentation with voice or at least like AI free-form interaction for teeing that up.
You're working with voice all the time, so you want to take it first.
So for the onboarding or like configuration specifically, no. So like the voice is just the interaction with the agent, but it's probably more of a, at least for now, we think it's more of like a standard UX problem of like explaining the user experience. I think it's something to think about for sure, because like obviously we already have the technology for those experiences. So and we actually have a use case for this. Like I did an interview recently. We're probably going to be doing outbound. Like right now, we only do inbound calls, but we're planning to do outbound calls. And one of the use cases that a lot of customers ask for is onboarding calls. So this is like any business gets a new customer, and today they would have a human agent call and explain how the product works, but they want AI agents to actually do this first call and like explain it. So I would say like with Fin Voice, we're focusing a bit more slightly upmarket. So there's still a lot of like, human touch in terms of like when we're doing it, but like I do think it's a good idea to explore.
Yeah, for us as well, I think we haven't done those experiments with voice yet. Similar to what Peter was saying, part of what, there's sort of like pro and con to this. Mobile is everything, so getting a better mobile experience is like the very sort of voice friendly. So it is something we've thought about. The other thing that we're thinking about though is increasingly the kind of users who are coming to Gamma are coming to Gamma with a lot of, they're not sort of like, hey, make me a deck about, I don't know, like winter. It's just like a lot less generic, and people are coming to Gamma with high intent. And often that means like, I actually have this really complex use case. Like here's 20 pages of notes from my meeting with this customer. I need to give them an update. Let's see what Gamma can do. And so we actually see more and more our first-time user. There is that easy mode, but a lot of them now are coming to Gamma with like, here's 20 pages, like make it work. And so part of our challenge is to figure out how do we make that experience also just as delightful, just as sort of like engaging as the first-time easy mode. But also it lends itself a little bit harder to voice. But I still think there's time and place and room for voice as well, because again, much of the world is mobile first. I try not to open my laptop if I absolutely don't have to. So I think there's very much a huge merit to that idea.
Hello? Hello.
Testing.
Cool. Thanks for the talk. So I'm Ling. I'm wondering, so you both are working on the product function and AI product function. What are the product metrics that you guys use, both in Fin and Gamma, to measure the important criteria like taste, like user experience you guys mentioned, which matters a lot for both company, and what are these common AI product metrics that you guys been adopting lately, and what are these metrics like? How are they different from the previous commonly used SaaS product metrics?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump into that. We look at lots of metrics across the board. A lot of our metrics are very much user satisfaction based. So once the user has generated either an entire deck or some sort of asset in Gamma, even an image, they're able to rate it. like thumbs up, thumbs down, somewhere in between. They're able to tell us why they rated it that way, so it's some like quick buttons because we have a sense of what might have gone wrong, so we give them quick options. They're also able to give us free-form written feedback, and we look at all of that. Chances are, if you've submitted any written feedback in the last 1 year at Gamma, I have probably read it. So we encourage you to do that. So we look at that. We look at obviously latency of like time to first token and things like that, and making sure, especially for the editing experience, that things are fast. We also look at things like overall, like how many of these gammas were shared with other people, how many were presented, how many were exported, because they also indicate this sense of polish. People aren't going to share or export things unless they feel like there's some sort of like quality there. So we look at softer metrics like that as well.
Yeah, I think for Fin Voice, or I guess for Fin in general, like resolution rate is probably our main metric. So are we actually solving those conversations for the customers? And that's how we monetize. So we have outcome-based pricing. So everything is aligned around those metrics. I guess on the code, a bit more of the qualitative side, like we're looking to metric I mentioned, it's instant escalation rate. So this is when someone asks for a representative right away. And also we do a lot of decomposition of like, it's kind of like decomposing language and conversation into like how many turns are there, what's the time to resolution, how many times we clarify before we actually try to give an answer. So we're doing a lot of this kind of analysis for each customer just to try to understand how those conversations flow. And we have a more standardized like the CSAT metric for customer service, although probably only like 2%, 3% of callers typically stay till the very end to leave a rating. So we're kind of moving away from that, and we now have a LLM-based, which we call it a metric called CX score. So it's more kind of like LLM as a judge going through the transcripts of the conversation and giving it a score based on a set of factors. So which gives us a score, like qualitative score across all conversations. So that's something we launched earlier this year, and it's been like extremely well received by all the like heads of customer service, because like finally they have a breakdown for all conversation and not just like a few percent.
I'll take one last question. I said I'd come back to you, and we'll finish on that.
I appreciate that. Peter, question for you. We spoke a lot about latency as well and how you track that. I think I read this Fin blog around how you'd done this P99 experiment around seeing if increasing latency actually increased trust in user sort of responses that you give out. Curious if that's something you've tried for voice as well.
So I think with latency, I mentioned this one experiment when we're trying to look at trade-offs between voice experience and latency. And I think we're going to do more experimentation around the answer quality. Like, we're not trying to deliberately increase the latency, but we think there is, like, as long as we keep the answers within this, like maybe 3-4 seconds, like we'll be stretching it. We think it's going to be acceptable as long as we can improve the other dimensions. Yeah, and there's like one more space like some players are doing is one more like aspect of this is adding filler phrases. So something, let me check that for you, kind of as you compute the answer. And we tried this initially, but it feels like incredibly repetitive over time. Like there was like one call I was like listening yesterday, which took 25 minutes on a call with Fin. So there was like a lot of question asks. It actually got resolved at the end, so also it was a successful one. But if you had to, every single answer, you'd hear something, let me check that for you, or give me a second. It just gets very repetitive. So we really try to push the latency down enough so we don't need those filler phrases.
Thank you very much, Peter and Deeni. Everyone, feel free to stay around for the next kind of half hour, 40 minutes, enjoy some pizza that arrived and drinks, but thank you.